A girl trapped in darkness for 17 years. Will love finally bring her happiness? Do you want me to bury you, Katie? The father's voice tore through the night, sharp as thunder against the silence of a rainy Seattle street. Under the dim glow of the old train station, a fragile 17-year-old girl stood clutching her guitar, tears mixing with the drizzle, while her exhausted father's rage was nothing more than fear in disguise. A prison of love, a cry for freedom, both colliding in one heartbreaking moment. What would you have done in his place? Welcome to Emotional Echoes, a channel where emotions come alive and every story leaves a lasting echo in your heart. Please subscribe to Emotional Echoes channel. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers so more souls can feel these stories. Stay with my video till the very end and let me know where you're watching from so I can see how far this story spreads. Now, let me tell you this story. In a quiet suburb outside Seattle, the nights felt heavier than the days. For most people, darkness meant rest. But for 17-year-old Katie, it was the only time she could breathe. She lived behind drawn curtains, hidden from daylight, while her father Jack, worn down by years at the shipyard, checked her window every night like it was his only shield against losing her. One summer night, the silence betrayed him. The window was open, the room was empty, and Jack's chest tightened as panic spread through him. He ran down empty streets until the sound of a guitar drifted from the old train station. Under the flickering lights, Katie stood in front of a small group of strangers, her voice trembling but alive, singing the dreams she could never touch in the daylight. Jack's fear came out as fury. "Katie, do you want to die? The sun doesn't care if you're dreaming." His words ripped through the air, making her freeze mid-song. Tears welled as she clutched the guitar tighter, her voice breaking. "I'm not living, Dad. I'm just existing in this prison." The cry was raw, louder than the melody still hanging in the night. The strangers shifted uncomfortably, caught in a moment too painful to watch. Jack grabbed her arm, his grip desperate more than harsh, his voice shaking as much as it shouted. He had built his whole world around protecting her, but standing there he saw the fire in her eyes, a fire that wanted more than survival. And in that instant, neither of them spoke again. The only sound left was Katie's quiet sobs and Jack's ragged breath, two broken hearts colliding under the dim station lights. Katie wiped her tears quickly, hoping the strangers had not seen the fight with her father. The small crowd slowly drifted away, leaving the air heavy with silence. Jack stood a few feet back, still trembling with anger and fear, when a tall boy stepped closer, curiosity written all over his face. Charlie Reynolds had passed the station on his way home, but the sound of Katie's voice had stopped him cold. He had never heard anything like it, raw and fragile, like someone singing from the edge of a cliff. He smiled nervously, trying to ease the tension. That was incredible. "Where do you usually play?" His voice was gentle, but Katie's heart pounded like a warning bell. She forced a laugh, looking down at her guitar to avoid his eyes. "Just here and there. Only at night." The words slipped out before she could catch them, and she prayed he would not ask why. Charlie tilted his head, sensing something she was not saying, but decided not to push. There was something about her that felt like a secret worth keeping. For the first time, Katie felt seen in a way that was not about her illness. His eyes carried no pity, only wonder, and it made her chest ache with both joy and fear. Behind them, Jack watched silently, torn between the instinct to drag his daughter home and the realization that something had just changed forever. In that brief exchange, a seed was planted. It was fragile, dangerous, but also full of the possibility she had been starving for all her life. Katie spent the whole night staring at her phone, the glow lighting up her pale face. Charlie's simple message asking if she wanted to see him again felt like a door she had dreamed of for years. Her thumb hovered over the screen, knowing every yes would be built on a lie, but she pressed send anyway. The next day, she sat with Megan at their usual cafe table, trying to hide the flutter in her chest. Megan leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. "You can't keep this from him forever. Lies have a way of burning worse than the truth." Katie forced a smile, but her fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve until the fabric stretched thin. Inside, guilt gnawed at her. She imagined Charlie's face when he found out, the anger, the betrayal. But another image overpowered it, the way he looked at her like she wasn't broken, like she was a girl worth knowing. That look had given her something her father's careful love never could, the feeling of being normal. "I know it's wrong," she whispered, her throat tight. "I know I'm selfish, but for once, I want to feel like everyone else." Megan's eyes softened, though worry lingered. She reminded Katie that stolen moments always end with a cost, and the bill would come sooner than she expected. Katie nodded, but her resolve did not waver. For once, she wanted to risk it. Even if the truth shattered everything later, she needed to taste this fragile happiness. As she left the cafe, her steps were light, but inside her chest a storm raged between the lie she carried and the love she longed for. Charlie wanted to show Katie a world outside her walls, so he took her downtown on a Friday night. Neon lights glowed, music spilled from open bars, and for the first time, Katie felt like she belonged among ordinary people. She held her breath, savoring the moment, until a sharp voice cut through the noise. Coach Miller stood at the corner, arms crossed, eyes narrowing when he saw Charlie. The man who once praised him now looked at him with disgust. "You're washed up, Reynolds. No college will want a broken swimmer." His words hit like punches, loud enough for strangers to hear. Katie stiffened, clutching Charlie's hand, her knuckles turning white. Charlie tried to ignore him, but Miller's gaze slid to Katie. "And who's this? Another charity case? Someone who follows you around because you have nothing else left?" The cruelty was deliberate, meant to wound deeper than any injury. Katie felt her chest tighten, heat rising in her face as she fought the urge to cry. Charlie's jaw clenched, his voice low with rage. "She's not a burden. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." But Miller only smirked, shaking his head. "Dreamers like you two never last. The world will crush you before the sun even rises." His words dripped poison, each syllable twisting the knife. Katie's eyes shimmered with tears, but she forced herself to stand tall beside Charlie. In that moment, she wasn't just fighting for herself, but for him too. Her heart ached at the injustice of it all, that a man with power could strip away dignity so easily. Charlie pulled her close, his body trembling, not from weakness, but from the weight of humiliation. The night that began with hope ended with a shadow over their fragile joy. As they walked away, Katie whispered that she was sorry for being the reason people mocked him. Charlie shook his head, his voice breaking. "Don't ever apologize for being the light in my life." Yet deep inside, both knew that Miller's words had left a scar they couldn't erase. The wind whipped through Katie's hair as she clung to the back of Charlie's bike. The night was cool, the streets almost empty, and for the first time, she felt like the world belonged to her. Charlie drove toward the coast, and when they stopped at the beach, the dark water shimmered under the moonlight. They sat in the sand, their voices soft against the rhythm of the waves. Katie laughed more freely than she had in years, her guard slipping with every word. Charlie told her about his shoulder injury, how it had stolen his dream, and she listened with a tenderness that made his walls crumble. For a moment, they forgot about time, lost in each other. But time does not forget. The horizon began to blush with light, slow and merciless. Katie's laughter faltered as she noticed the pale streaks rising behind the ocean. Panic flickered in her eyes, but she stayed, caught between fear and the sweetness of belonging. The sun climbed higher, and her skin began to prickle with the burns she knew too well. By the time Charlie dropped her off, the damage had already started. Jack was waiting at the door, his face pale with terror and rage. His voice cracked into the morning air. "Do you want me to bury you, Katie? Do you want me to be the father who failed his daughter twice?" His words thundered louder than the seagulls crying overhead. Katie stumbled inside, her arms shielding her raw skin. Tears blurred her sight, but the fire inside her refused to die. She turned to her father, her voice shaking but fierce. "I'd rather die one night of freedom than spend a lifetime locked away." The sentence shattered him more than any disease ever could. Jack gripped the doorframe, his body trembling as if the house itself could collapse. His love had been built on fear, and now fear had become a prison his daughter despised. The silence that followed was unbearable, the kind that leaves scars. Katie walked past him, each step heavy with pain, but also with the certainty that she had chosen her own life, if only for one dangerous dawn. The days after the sunrise left Katie weaker than before. Her skin burned easily, her energy fading faster with each passing hour, yet she still picked up her guitar every night. Music was her lifeline, and each song she wrote carried a piece of the love she had found with Charlie. One afternoon, while she rested on the couch, Charlie stopped by with a bag of takeout. He went to the kitchen to grab napkins and opened the wrong cabinet. Inside were bottles of pills, rows of ointments, and a thick folder marked with her name. The pages spilled onto the counter, filled with words like incurable and high risk. His breath caught, and his hands trembled as the truth sank in. When Katie saw him standing frozen, the color drained from her face. Charlie's voice cracked as he asked why she never told him. "You were dying right in front of me. You said nothing." His anger was sharp, but beneath it was a pain deeper than any wound. Katie's eyes glistened as she whispered that being with him was the first time she ever felt alive. Her confession broke something inside him. He wanted to be angry, to push her away for lying, but all he could see was the fragile girl who had risked everything just to taste a moment of normal life. He sank beside her, holding her hands as if they might slip away. She leaned against him, her breathing shallow but steady, and for the first time he understood that love was not about time but about presence. The rumors did not stop. Katie's secret spread faster than she could hide, and by the end of the week the hallways were filled with laughter at her expense. Some called her the vampire girl, others joked that Charlie was only with her because no one else would be. Every word chipped away at her already fragile courage. Katie tried to keep her head down, but the sting was unbearable. Charlie heard the whispers too, and anger burned inside him. When one boy sneered that she would turn to dust before prom night, Charlie slammed him against the lockers, his voice raw with rage. The hallway erupted, fists flew, and the shame turned into bruises on Charlie's face. Katie pushed through the crowd, her hands shaking as she tried to pull him away. Blood trickled from his lip, and her stomach twisted with guilt. This was never the love she dreamed of, but chaos born from her secret. Her presence, her illness, had become the weapon others used to hurt him. Charlie looked at her through the haze of anger, breathing hard, but his eyes still burned with loyalty. He whispered that he would rather bleed than let her stand alone. The words should have comforted her, but they sank like stones in her chest. She could not escape the truth that she was the reason he was bleeding at all. When the crowd dispersed, silence settled heavy in the hallway. Katie clutched his hand, her tears spilling, her voice trembling. "I'm so afraid I've only made your life harder. I never wanted you to suffer because of me." Her confession was not rejection, but fear. The fear that her love had chained him to pain he did not deserve. Charlie squeezed her hand tighter, refusing to let go. His answer was simple but steady, that she was not his burden but his choice. Yet as they walked out of the building together, Katie's heart ached with a cruel truth. Love had given her strength, but it had also tied Charlie to a storm she could not control. The fight at school left more than bruises. It left a trail of whispers that followed Katie everywhere, and Jack could see the light draining from his daughter faster than ever. When Dr. Harris came by the house, his words were merciless. "If she keeps pushing like this, she will not last through the summer." Jack's knees gave out as if the floor had vanished beneath him. Katie overheard enough to understand. She lay awake that night, the guitar resting across her lap, and her hands moved slowly over the strings. Every note carried the weight of goodbye, each lyric a prayer she could not say out loud. She titled the song "After the Dawn" because she knew she might never see another sunrise without pain. Megan found her at the desk, scribbling lines on crumpled paper, tears staining the ink. Katie pressed the folded pages into her friend's hand with trembling fingers. "If I don't make it, give this to Charlie. Promise me." Megan's throat tightened, but she nodded, swallowing her own grief. She knew this was not just a song, it was Katie's heart carved into melody. The room grew heavy with silence, as if the walls themselves were listening. Jack peeked in, watching his daughter write, as if each word was borrowed time. His heart broke, knowing he could not trade places with her, no matter how much he wished. Katie looked up and forced a smile, hiding the fear behind it, but the truth was etched in her pale face. She was running out of tomorrows. The days grew heavier, and everyone braced for the worst. Then Dr. Harris returned with news that felt like a lifeline. A rare research center in California had accepted Katie for experimental treatment. It was risky, unproven, but it was a chance, and Jack clung to it as if it were the last rope dangling over a cliff. The night before they left, Katie sat with her father at the kitchen table. For years, Jack had locked every door, closed every window, believing that love meant building walls around her. His voice cracked as he admitted what he had never said aloud. "I can't protect you from life. I can only walk beside you through it." Katie reached for his hand, tears sliding down her face, and for the first time he felt the weight of fear slip from his shoulders. In California, sterile white halls and humming machines became Katie's new world. The treatments drained her, leaving her fragile, but there was a spark in her eyes again. Charlie visited whenever he could, sitting by her bed, listening as she hummed pieces of the song she had written. Each note reminded him that courage was not about winning, but about showing up even when the odds were against you. One night, walking back from the hospital, Charlie wandered into the pool where he once trained. The water shimmered under the lights, calm and waiting, like a mirror of everything he had lost. He stood at the edge, memories flooding in. The coach's harsh words, the injury that broke his dream, the shame of being discarded. Then he thought of Katie, singing through pain, still daring to hope for tomorrow, even when tomorrow was never promised. Charlie dove in. The cold water stung, his shoulder screamed in protest. But he pushed forward. Stroke after stroke, he felt the weight of doubt peel away. He remembered the boy who once believed he could fly through water, and he realized that boy was not gone, just waiting. Every pull was powered by Katie's resilience, every breath a promise to honor the courage she carried in her fragile body. By the time he touched the wall, his chest burned, but his spirit roared with something new: freedom. Back in her hospital room, Katie watched the sunrise through protective glass. It washed her pale skin in gold, fragile yet luminous. Jack stood beside her, not with fear this time, but with quiet pride, knowing the road ahead was uncertain, but no longer hopeless. Charlie would return to the water, carrying her strength with him, because the girl who once lived only in the night had taught him that even borrowed time could light the way forward. A year passed, and the girl who once counted her days in shadows was still here. Katie was thinner, her body fragile, but the treatments in California had kept her alive. Every step was slow, every breath precious, yet her eyes carried the glow of someone who had seen death and chosen to keep walking. On a crisp spring afternoon, the local swimming arena filled with cheers. Charlie stood at the edge of the pool, shoulders stronger, heart steadier, ready to dive into the dream he once abandoned. Before the race began, the speakers filled the stadium with music, and the familiar melody drifted across the water. It was After the Dawn, the song Katie had written when she thought her time was ending. Katie sat high in the stands, wrapped in a blanket, her hands trembling as the notes reached her. The crowd quieted, some recognizing the weight of the song, but only a few knew the girl who had given it life was right there among them. Tears slid down her face, not of sorrow but of gratitude. She whispered to herself that she had lived to see the sunrise, and it was worth everything. When Charlie dove into the pool, his strokes cut through the water with the fire of someone swimming not just for medals, but for love, for hope, for the promise that broken dreams could be rebuilt. Jack stood beside Katie, his hand steady on her shoulder, no longer clinging with fear but standing tall with pride. For the first time, the future was not certain, yet it felt enough. The story did not end with cures or perfect endings. It ended with borrowed days turned into a gift, with love that outlasted fear, with courage that made every moment count. Life was fragile, unpredictable, but in that stadium filled with music and water and light, everyone felt the same truth. To live is to love, and to love is to find a reason to keep living. From the night Katie first sang at the station to the day Charlie dove back into the water, their journey was one of fragile love and unshakable courage. It taught us that life is uncertain, but love, compassion, and family can turn even borrowed time into a gift. Katie's story is not just hers, it speaks to all of us about finding light in the darkest places. If this story touched you, share your feelings in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Emotional Echoes so more hearts can be reached. Thanks for listening.